When Hope got to London, his pocket was about empty, and he found that he must turn his hand to something for his living. So he applied at a cab owner's office, and soon got employment. This metropolis was so majestic that Hope could not find where Drebber and Stangerson were living. But he inquired and inquired until at last he dropped across them at a boarding house at Camberwell. At the very evening Hope saw them heading to Euston Station with their luggage, but there was some quarrel between them. At last Drebber made his way out of the station alone, and went into one or two liquor shops to get drunk. Hope continued to follow Drebber, and witnessed the absurd behaviour of this drunkard. Afterwards Drebber was chased by a young chap, and had no choice but to jump into the cab of Hope. The moment for which Hope had waited so long had at last come. It was nearer 1 than 12. Hope pulled up at the house in the Brixton Road, and they walked into the long-abandoned apartment.
Now, Enoch Drebber.
Hope struck a match, and held the light to his own face.
Who am I?
Drebber gazed at Hope with bleared, drunken eyes for a moment, and then a horror sprang up in his face, and convulsed his whole features.
You dog!
Hope cried, locking the door, and shaking the key in his face.
Punishment has been slow in coming, but it has overtaken you at last.
Would you murder me?
Drebber stammered.
There is no murder.
Hope answered, thrusting the box containing the poison pill before him.
Let the high God judge between us. Choose and eat. There is death in one and life in the order. I shall take what you leave. Let us see if there is justice upon the earth, or if we are ruled by chance.
Under the compulsion of Jefferson Hope, they each swallowed a pill, and then they stood facing each other and waited for their last moments.
What do you think of Lucy Ferrier now?
Hope held Lucy's marriage ring in front of Drebber's eyes. The culprit did not answer, or rather he could not answer. A spasm of pain contorted his features. He threw his hands out in front of him, staggered, and then, with a hoarse cry, fell heavily upon the floor. That was how Enoch Drebber came to his end, and the sole mistake of Jefferson Hope was lost Lucy's ring under the body of deceased. Hope, who has not yet realized this, dipped his finger in his own blood and printed the scarlet race on a convenient place on the wall, in order to set the police upon a wrong track. All Hope had to do then was to do as much for Stangerson, and so pay off John Ferrier's debt. Hope described Drebber's death and gave the same choice to Stangerson. Stangerson chose to fight back, however, so Hope had to stab him to self-defend. This was the truth of whole case, as narrated by Jefferson Hope himself within a calm and methodical manner, in answer to the inquiry of a police inspector, after we took him to the police station. No one disputed the account of Hope, for his confession and my examination revealed that he had an aortic aneurysm and was close to death. On the very night after Jefferson Hope was captured, the aneurysm burst, and he was found in the morning stretched upon the floor of the cell, with a placid smile upon his face, as though he had been able in his dying moments to look back upon a useful life, and on work well done.
Now let me endeavour to show you the different steps in my reasoning.
Holmes and I chatted this case over next evening, and he explained the whole deduction of this case to me in detail.
To begin at the beginning, I approached the house, as you know, on foot, and with my mind entirely free from all impressions. I naturally began by examining the roadway, and there, as I have already explained to you, I saw clearly the marks of a cab, which I ascertained by inquiry, must have been there during the night. This was the first point gained. I then walked slowly down the garden path, which happened to be composed of a clay soil, peculiarly suitable for taking impressions. I saw the heavy footmarks of the constables, but I saw also the track of the two men who had first passed through the garden. In this way my second link was formed, which told me that the nocturnal visitors were two in number, one remarkable for his height, as I calculated from the length of his stride, and the other fashionably dressed, to judge from the small and elegant impression left by his boots. On entering the house this last inference was confirmed. My well-booted man lay before me. The tall one, then, had done the murder, if murder there was. There was no wound upon the dead man's person, but the agitated expression upon his face assured me that he had foreseen his fate before it came upon him. Having sniffed the dead man's lips, I detected a slightly sour smell, and I came to the conclusion that he had poison forced upon him. The murder of Stangerson was an incident which was entirely unexpected, but which could hardly in any case have been prevented. Through it, as you know, I came into possession of the pills, the existence of which I had already surmised. It must have been a private wrong, and not a political one, which called for such a methodical revenge. And now came the great question as to the reason why. When the ring was found, however, it settled the question. Clearly the murderer had used it to remind his victim of some dead or absent woman. I telegraphed to the head of the police at Cleveland, limiting my inquiry to the circumstances connected with the marriage of Enoch Drebber. The answer was conclusive. It told me that Drebber had already applied for the protection of the law against an old rival in love, named Jefferson Hope, and that this same Hope was at present in Europe. I knew now that I held the clue to the mystery in my hand, and all that remained was to secure the murderer. I therefore organized my street Arab detective corps, and sent them systematically to every cab proprietor in London until they ferreted out the man that I wanted.
This was the entire process of the first public case of Sherlock Holmes, recorded and published by his fellow lodging, Dr. John Watson. And I would like to end this book with this well-known Roman proverb: Populus mi sibilat, et mihi prodeo, ipse domi simul ac nemos contempla in arca.